Welcome to Reality Tea Times 2, the podcast where we discuss all the trash reality TV we love to hate. I'm Tanika, and today we're going to be discussing the family Chantel. So we don't have any hot goss to discuss in this episode. All of the hot goss happens in all the other main episodes. So this is going to be kind of like a partial recap, not a full recap. Just so we can get through it. There's going to be a lot of content coming your way, so let's get into it. So, The Family Chantel, Season 5, Episode 4, Fortune's Fool. This is the title of this episode. So, in the beginning of the episode, we see Winter is going to be doing her photo shoot, the reason that we're here, whatever. Chantel's not quite here because she's more focused on the drama with Pedro. And it's mentioned that Karen and Winter are going to be meeting with Alejandro. Although Chantel wants to hear what he has to say, she is curious about it. She just doesn't want to be there, so she is opting to not be a part of it. So, in the next scene, Lidia is going home the next morning after spending the night with Escat. And she is a little bit, weirded out because Pedro and Nicole are there waiting for her. And they're immediately just kind of judging her and going in on her about her being there the night before. And it's like, wait a minute, guys, well, hold on. Your mom is allowed to do whatever the hell she wants to do. Maybe it shouldn't be with Escott, but it's going to be with whomever she wants to be with. Why are we judging her for something? They're like, we don't usually see the side of her. And it's like, okay, because she's been dedicated to raising her children after this fucked up relationship she's had with your father for 12 years now. She is allowed to live a life. I don't see the problem. So, but the problem is, Scott, but we'll get to him. So, Nicole then says, you know what? Our father was much better. At least he came with material things. Ma'am, your father was not better. If anything, he's fucking worse than Escott, because that fucking guy who fathered 2 children with your mother would basically expect that his children wouldn't fucking be around when he would come over to fuck your mother. And you're trying to tell me that although he came with material things, he's better than Scott? Are we really trying to tell us this right now? Are you insane? Yes, the answer is yes. Your father wouldn't spend time with his children, but he's better because he came with material things. Material things do not make you fucking happy. And this is what these people need to understand. And I feel like, also seeing it with, I don't want to shove all of Dominican people into one basket, but when we have so many Dominicans we've had on this show, from Luis to Pedro to Alejandro. We had that new guy on the UK, Johan. Really and truly, the only person who didn't seem to really truly want those material things first and foremost was the guy in the UK season. That's the only one. When we have 10 of them, and then we have him, and I can't even say Annie because she started off wanting material things. Do I think she loves Robert? Yes. But she did start off wanting material things. That shit doesn't make you happy. I'm sorry. Anyways. So Lydia says, you need to give him a chance. And basically she's just kind of saying, let me live. Because I've lived for you guys, let me live. And I don't see the problem with that necessarily. And she's like, listen, if he doesn't continue acting the way that I think he needs to be acting, I will deal with him. Until then, let me do me. Then anyway, Pedro says, you know what? No, hold on. Wait a second. You know what we're going to do? We're going to go meet him and go see him, and we're going to go have a little discussion about all of this. So we'll get to it. Okay, so then we go to the blind date portion of this. And we pretty much come out of this date knowing that he is basically just like Pedro. He is addicted to his work, just like Pedro. He really loves going to the gym, just like Pedro. And she's basically like, it's a no for me, dog. You know what I mean? Which I understand that for sure. Why would you want to repeat your old, your old choices? But this guy's an asshole. Let's dig a little deeper into this. But his name is Scott, not to be confused with Scott, just Scott. And he basically says to us in a moment that he wants to undress the soul before he undresses the clothes. Ew. I don't like it. He tells her that he usually takes girls to this Dave and Buster's thing that he's taken her to, because if there's no spark, then we could just go our separate ways. But if there is a spark, then I would take you to like a diner or something. But, more on that spark. I haven't experienced that with you yet. And Chantel's like, well, Jesus, like, what the fuck, dude? Like, ew. Like I said. He is basically saying after that, though, that he is looking for a soulmate. And she says that, like, listen, I'm not looking for a soulmate. I'm just basically looking for someone that I can have a serious connection with, be a little more realistic about things. And he says, so a business arrangement. No, sir, that's not the same thing. When someone is saying that I don't believe in soulmates, but I believe in having a serious connection with somebody, then doesn't immediately go to, oh, you want a business arrangement. Like, no. Not everyone believes in the soulmate bullshit. I am one. I don't think that I've never thought there was only one person for you out there. Never thought that. I believe that there is a person out there who meets your needs in that moment. And if that moment can last years and years and years, and maybe even till death do us part, then great. But that doesn't mean you're my soulmate. Okay? That's what I agree with her on this. I don't know if she's ever believed in soulmates before, but I got her. I totally understood what she was trying to say here. So then we are back in the DR and we're having the meeting with Scott. And Scott starts off by saying, Pedro, it's a pleasure to meet you. And Pedro says, well, it's not a pleasure to meet you. So here's what I'm going to say. I heard all of this shit. I heard that you were rude to my sister. You were rude to my mom, all of this, and blah, blah, blah. And there's this Colombian girl who just showed up out of nowhere and all of this. Like, it's not a pleasure. Lord. And as Scott says, like, hold on, you're a little tense. Are you okay? Like, let's take it down a notch. I'm here to talk to you. I want to do that calmly though, if that's okay with you. They're both fucked up, and honestly, in my mind. But anyway, he explains kind of what happened with Liz, that as we already know, Liz contacted him before he went to the DR. And then when he got to the DR with this, I guess the hurdles that happened with Lydia made him break up with Lydia and then go back to Liz. And he said, listen, I broke things off with your mom before Liz got here. Like, I could do whatever the fuck I wanted, basically, is what he's saying. And Nicole's like, oh, so you could have fucked her in the same hotel room from which you like had my mom, which the thing is, it's like, I want to know when the sex happened, because I think it happened that day. I'm pretty sure, if I remember correctly, exactly. Maybe I'm wrong, but did she go into his room when he was there the first time? I don't know. Doesn't really matter. Who cares? But that's what I'm trying to get at. It's just like, eh, anyway, as Scott says that he didn't have sex with Liz, I don't know if I believe him. I would believe Liz. Like if she could come in and pitch in her 2 cents into this, I would believe her. I don't believe Scott. Um, and Lydia believes him though. Lydia says, well, he said he didn't sleep with her. Why are you so quick to believe him though? Like, really? Um, so then all of a sudden, Nicole comes out here raging with her shit and she calls him an asshole. Fine. But then decides to throw water on Lydia, even though I don't think she was trying to throw water on Lydia, but that's what happened. And I thought in this moment, well, I didn't even just think it, I said it out loud. I said, if I were to even, I would be so far up Shit's Creek with my mother. Like, honestly. And Scott afterwards is like, you okay? You good? Do you need anything? Do you need a towel or like Jesus? So Scott says, I respect your kids. No, he doesn't. And we'll get to it. He does not respect our children at all. So very quickly over back to New York, Karen and Winter are going to meet Alejandro and he never shows up. We're just going to do this here while we are at this point. A little later on, I guess it's the next day, um, Chantel does ask like what happened with Alejandro, which was nothing. And Karen decides to tell that the PI had sent a message to Karen saying that Alejandro was not going to be showing up, that he had talked to Nicole and that's over and that's done. That's not going to happen. I'm really surprised though, because I'm like, he didn't want to be on TV. Really? Like we're not seeing him at all. I'm surprised. Anyways, so now we know that they know that this is happening. Great. So yeah, so that's kind of it there. Now we're with Pedro at a gym. And he's going to be meeting a Scott. And there is apparently now a video of a Scott um, getting phone numbers and flirting with other women. And we do see the video and it's pretty clear he's flirting. We'll get to it. We'll get to Scott's opinion on this. And Scott does these stretches when he gets there. He gets there after. He's doing these stretches, which is very similar to the Love in Paradise season, where he literally took a cushion from a chair, lied it down, and then just started doing stretches in the middle of the street. This is basically what he's doing. He's like, I'm an old man, I got to stretch. And he's like getting down there. It was really weird. He's such a weirdo. I know he's like a physical therapist or something, so maybe that's where he's getting this from, but whatever. So yeah, so he does his stretches, and then Scott says, "Listen, I want no issues. I I just want to talk." And then Pedro starts to talk, and it's getting to the point where he's going to bring up those videos. And then he talks about like you're being dishonest. And dishonesty means that, people get clapped or whatever, which here's what I'm going to say. I'm going to dissect, dissect. I'm going to dissect, all the different things here that kind of happen with this. The first thing I'm going to say with this is that, listen, Pedro's an asshole. Pedro shouldn't have come in and being like, people get clapped. Sir, Alejandro fucked you all the way up. You can't clap shit. So get the fuck out of here with your nonsense. People get clapped. Yeah, not by you. So anyway, I had a problem with that, but that does not mean that Scott should have done and then ultimately said what he said. So Scott gets kind of in his face a little bit. It's funny because actually me and Letitia actually were having a little bit of a disagreement here about this. And he kind of, what I didn't remember like watching this back again is that Scott did get in Pedro's face. Like Pedro was actually basically, for those who didn't watch the episode, Scott is literally like up in his space. Like for me, I would have punched him immediately because I can't handle people in my space who I don't want in my space. He literally goes up into his space. Like his shoulder is literally up on probably Scott's like chest practically. And that's what I mean, his shoulder. Pedro was not facing Scott. Pedro was facing like the punching bag, not looking at Scott's direction. But then eventually Pedro does turn, backs up a little as he's turning, and is then facing Scott. Then Scott shoves him half across the fucking room. Now that was fucking funny initially. It's not fucking funny anymore. And because of that, then Pedro comes in and he starts fighting him. And, you know, Scott's like, you punched me in the head and all of this nonsense. But here's what I'm going to say before I get into more of this. If my potential, because that's literally what we're calling him, they're literally calling each other potential love interests of each other. If my potential literally says to me, or sorry, goes to my child and is shoving my child, I don't care how old my child is. I don't care if he's 2, 10, 20, 80. I don't care. If a man is shoving my child half across the fucking country, okay, with the shove, if he is doing that, you best believe I will fuck you up. I would not have done what Lidia ends up doing in the next episode and sleep with him before I get my answers about what the fuck happened. I'm gonna figure out what the fuck happened. And then, because the thing that I have an issue with, not so much Lidia, I mean, I have the issue with Lidia, but Lidia can only do what she's deal with what she's given. And in this moment, she's only given half truths when she does sleep with him or stays the night with him. But I have issue because she didn't get the full truth from Scott and didn't think to go get the truth fully from Pedro. She sleeps with this fucker and gives him the fucking satisfaction of what he ultimately wanted to do. We'll get to it. So yeah, I would have fucked him all the way up if you're shoving my child like that. I don't think so. How would he feel if someone did that to his child? I don't fucking think so. You fucking... Anyways. So once they've calmed down and are able to talk to some extent, Pedro says, listen, there's a video. Nicole had her friends spying on your fucking ass, probably because she works in the hotel. Her friend is spying on your ass and sees that you're getting numbers from all these different women. See, this woman, you got her number. That woman, you got her number. This one, you got her number. You got all these people's numbers. And Scott is like, I'm a friendly guy. I'm social. I talk to people. I'm not doing anything wrong. Yes, you are. And I'm not going to believe you because this is the same person who snuck his Colombian girlfriend into the country after he broke off with Lidia. And then the only reason you're even entertaining Lidia after at the end of Love in Paradise, and then this is because it didn't work with fucking Liz. That's why. Because Liz dumped your ass 2 days later. You're pathetic, Scott. And you're disgusting, Scott. Ew. Anyway. Yeah, he says, like, you know, you have, like, your family spying on me and all of this. And Scott says, do you want to talk with me? Can we talk? And Pedro says, no, I'm good. I don't want to talk no more. I'm peachy. And he leaves. And it was when he left that Scott decides to say, listen, he he fought me and all of this nonsense and all of this, which by the way, I also forgot to say this. He literally says, you know karate and I know crazy. Pretty sure that's what he said. I know, yeah, and I know crazy. That's fucking funny. Anyways, but after Pedro leaves, Scott pretty much says, like, you know, as he says before to Pedro, I have the best intentions and all of this. He says all of this, but then he also then says, like, I am going to have sex with his mother as much as I want, and I want him to know about it. You're disgusting. You're absolutely disgusting. Because think of it this way. He ultimately gets what he wants. And you know he was thinking about Pedro the entire time as he did it. How disgusting is that? And he's literally getting the satisfaction in more ways than one at Lydia's expense. He is disgusting. And really and truly, after this, I don't want him on my screen again. And honestly, what makes me even more sick, and I know, like, you know, the crew can't get involved in certain things, but in so many ways, it feels so just violating to me if I knew that he was planning this to spite my kid. And that's the only reason he slept with me that night. I feel like the crew just stepped in and said, Lydia, no, please don't. He's only doing this, and here's why, and show her the fucking footage and be done. Lydia is not a great person. Don't get me wrong. Like, I'm not saying that, but no one deserves that. No one deserves that. This man's 52 years old and acting like he's 15. This is something that teenage kids would do. And even then, like, you have to be really dark and depraved to do something like this. But anyways, that is it for our semi recap of the last episode of last week's episode of Family Chantel. Thank you for being patient with me. Again, you're getting completely dumped on with content as we go. So yeah, that's it for this week for Family Chantel. So if you like what you heard, please rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast. And you can rate a review on either Apple Podcasts or Spotify. And I have a new thing that I want to start trying, and that is that every 4 or 5-star review that we get, I'll read it on the podcast. So if you want to hear your review on the podcast, please rate and review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or wherever you're able to rate and review. And if you want to connect with us, you can do so by going to Reality Tea Times 2 on Facebook, Reality Tea Times 2 podcast on Instagram or Threads, Reality Tea Times 2 pod on Twitter. You can also find us on Reddit at Reality Tea Times 2 pod. And you can also email us at realityteatimes2@hotmail.com. And don't forget, you can find us on YouTube at Reality Tea Times 2. You can also subscribe, like, comment on there as well. We greatly appreciate that. And don't forget that I do have another podcast with my friend Mikkel called Next Take Podcast, where we talk about all kinds of different things. We currently have, this number can definitely change, but we currently have about 8 episodes. Roughly, we've talked about all kinds of different things. We have a lot of fun over there. So please go take a listen to us over at Next Take Podcast. which you can find us on YouTube at Next Take Podcast. You can also find us on our website, solo.to/Next Take Podcast. And don't forget, we have a website, and that is at solo.to/reality tea times 2. And we also have a Discord, and I believe that's reality tea times 2 as well. So you can find us there. But that's basically it. That's all the stuff. Of course, everything here that I've just listed will be in our show notes, all discount codes, special links to everything that we put in our ads are also in our show notes. And yeah, that's basically it, guys. Thanks so much. Bye.